What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. And if you want to get caught up, go down below in the description. You'll find links to some of these books. You can click on those. It's a great way to support the channel, and you can get caught up with the conversations right here. All right, let's start over in Marvel with Sai. We have the Dimensional Rivals issue number 2. So Peach Momoko is the consistent artist on this one. It's written and drawn by her. She has a couple collaborators on this issue and the previous one. So we have Bustos, I think it's how you pronounce it, and Assad Rubik doing some of the guest panels, and it's really cool how they structure the entire story. So Sai is basically our Psylocke character. She comes from a different version of Earth. She's sent on this quest from these mystical people to find this magical stone. Now, every time she goes into a different dimension through this portal, a different artist will take over for that section. I think some of the writing as well for those sections. So it's kind of cool to see that used in a really meaningful way. We go inside this portal, we go to a different dimension. It's a whole different aesthetic, vibe, feel, and it just makes sense to do it like that. Now, in the previous issues, Sai is really thrown off by all of this, doesn't really know exactly what's going on, and so a little bit disoriented, but now we're kind of taking that on a little bit, and we're excited to go see what the next dimension is, although it's dangerous, you know what I mean? You don't know what you're going to run into, and so we get to see exactly where she goes next. And here she's coming across some villains that she's messed with back in the past, and so they're playing different roles in these other dimensions. She's having to reconcile with all of that. And of course, on top of all that, we're still going through and we're trying to find these magical stones. And so, you know, it's all building up into something really interesting, I think. This book is actually turning into something that I'm looking forward to, seeing who Peach is going to be collaborating with from issue to issue. That's pretty cool. I like that. I like the anticipation of all that. I'm trying not to spoiler it by going online and looking up who the creative teams are. The story is pretty cool as well. Like I said, there's a lot of mystery behind it. There's a what's going to happen next element to it that I really enjoy. I like the visual changes, like I said before. So it's something to pay attention to if you haven't checked it out yet. All right, next up is Thanos issue number 2. No, wait, hold on. It's Null issue number 2. Sorry about that. Al Ewing on this one, and we have Ramirez on the art. So if you're a Thanos fan, this is showcasing his talents, man, on full display. I miss that vibe and that feel and those just overpowering, overbearing moments that Thanos has. Like the inevitability of Thanos is on display inside the issue, and I like the gruesomeness and the brutality around it. We do get a history lesson again on Null in general, like what his being is, the eternal battle that he faced back in the day, the opponents that he had, the artifacts that were used, and we know what he's going for right now. You know, he's trying to find that next weapon to bring him some more power and take back over the entire galaxy. That's where we're headed in issue number 2. Hela is still playing her part throughout the issue. She thinks she's manipulating the pieces on the board just the right way. There's some people around her that are criticizing that strategy. You know, the more adversaries that you throw towards Null, the stronger he will become, the more desperate and unpredictable he will become. So far, everything is in check, but that's inevitably going to go off the rails soon. But again, I think the highlight of this series so far has been the tease of Thanos in the end of issue number 1 and seeing Thanos doing what he does best inside of this issue. He is that constant eternal threat that we see, and I just love seeing that. I'm liking what I see so far with Thanos being inside this book. I am curious to see how many people are reading this book right now and what you thought about it coming back, having Null come back as a character in general. If you read issue number 1, was there enough there to go back to issue number 2? I think there was enough, and I'm glad I read issue number 2, so check it out if you haven't yet. All right, here's where things fall apart. We have Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 24. Of course, we have Hickman on this one, we have Kaketo, and we have Messina doing pretty much every other page, it feels like, as you get towards the end of this book. I know 2 years ago when we started reading this book, we thought that Peter had it too good. He didn't have any powers or the responsibility to do anything with those powers. He had the girl, he had the family, he has Uncle Ben, he lost Aunt May, a little bit of a role reversal there, but like his world was intact, or more than it is in proper Marvel. Then as the series went on, we started noticing that things are a little bit too good. Even when he gets his powers, he's handling things in a decent way. There's so much danger around him though, so many different characters coming into his life, and we're pulling all this baggage from Marvel proper into this story, and we're like, one day the shoe is gonna fall. Stuff is going to hit the fan and his life is going to be absolutely ruined. Now, throughout the last 24 issues, he's certainly gone through a lot of adversity, a lot of struggle. He's had loss here and there, but this issue kind of just like wraps everything up with a happy ending and a little bow on it. It almost seems completely divorced from what's happening inside of the Ultimates or Ultimate Endgame, even though we know Peter is in those situations right now, facing the Maker's army and whatnot, dealing with Iron Lad and everybody else inside their little bubble. But we don't get any of that cohesion inside of Ultimate Spider-Man. As far as I know, Ultimate X-Men ended in a very similar way, where they wrapped up some stuff, they introduced some stuff at the very end, and then it just kind of fell flat on the ending in general. Now, there might be some nuance that I'm missing right now. Who knows? Maybe there's a time jump and then Ultimate Endgame is kicking off there. That's why Peter's in there. Maybe I missed those nuances, but it feels like Ultimate Spider-Man came, it went, it was inside of its own little bubble, and then it just kind of ends, and there's nothing really there besides a ... And then from an art perspective, we're jumping around so much. I think we skipped January with this release schedule, if I'm not mistaken. And so we have two different artists going back and forth on pages, sometimes in ways that are a little bit jarring. You'll be flipping through and there's an art change and it happens again and again and again. So, that was a little bit inconsistent and kind of annoying as well. So I guess in a bubble, Ultimate Spider-Man works from start to finish. You got to ignore everything else going on around there. As readers, we're conditioned to have Peter go through tragedy after tragedy. This one just ends and gives him a happy ending, so to speak, at the end here. So, hey, it's about time, I guess. All right, lastly, in Marvel, we read Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon, issue number 1. Chip Zdarsky on this one. We have Luca doing some of the art as well. Now, I was excited for this one because Chip has been mentioning in some interviews lately that, sometimes his books lead into broader Marvel events. Think about Daredevil and Devil's Reign. Now he's on Captain America. He's got some Doom stuff going on. So that's going to become something bigger than probably it was initially intended. Now Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon has the chance of doing that exact same thing in this book. So I jumped in like a lot of people probably did, and I will say that it has a lot of Wolverine tropes inside of it, some very predictable things. If you had to make a list of top 5 things you see from Wolverine most often, they will execute on those inside of this issue. So it becomes something that's a little bit eye-rolly as you're going through. Like, of course, he's going to be running through the woods naked with wolves, or somebody will. So you get to read that and see what's going on. There are interesting things, I guess, in here. We're retreading on the whole super soldier serum thing, Weapon X in general. Is there anybody else we can tap into with similar power sets so we can recreate Wolverine? There's not enough in here that's new, fresh, and unique. And so I'm like, where are we going with the story in general? I don't know, but we've seen this kind of thing play out 100 times before. Looks like Chip read Born Again or something else with Nuke in it, because he's bringing Nuke back. And so that's a fun character, but there's not a whole lot of substance there that I'm aware of, just popping different pills to engage in different kinds of emotional states. So it's cool to see those two brooding forces go head to head. So that might be something cool, but I don't know where we're going besides down the same path of trying to resurrect the Weapon X protocol or Weapon X project and failing at doing so. The art was also something I wasn't totally jiving with. There are some moments in here, some static moments that work, but a lot of the action scenes, some of the high drama scenes didn't quite work for me. So man, I gotta say, Marvel's in a weird place right now. I like the books that are kind of on their own, you know what I mean? Doing their own thing. But when it comes to Ultimates, for the most parts, it's not really jiving with me right now. They really need to hone it in, and I honestly don't know what they're going to do that. All right, we're out of Marvel. Let's go over to DC. We have Absolute Batman issue number 17. Of course, Scott Snyder is on here, and the ink pulp antagonist himself, Eric Canetti, is doing the interior pages for the next couple of issues through this Poison Ivy arc. In some of the most recent interviews with Eric Canetti, he was describing his interaction and just the thought process that Scott Snyder has with comics in general, and the way that they're framing things right now sounds so engaging, so fun, just so vibrant and exciting. It's really hard to not enjoy what's going on inside the Absolute universe right now and how they're approaching these stories and these characters. It's just the way things should be. And you can see the response from it too, with the success of Absolute Batman, with the success of Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter and Superman. Those books right there are selling incredible numbers right now, reaching incredible reprints. And so that whole plan is just working right now. But enough out of that. We have Absolute Poison Ivy inside the issue. We do get a cool back and forth origin story of who she is, her relationship with her mother, what was driving her to test and play around with different things. She's not just in tune with the green in general. She's in tune with pretty much every type of biome that there is. She's messing with the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, everything else in between to find answers to this problem that she has. And of course it taints her, right? It sends her in the wrong direction. She becomes the villain of the story with good intentions. And that's what Batman is going up against right now with the help of Alfred and some of the GCPD and whatnot. Now, it wouldn't be an Absolute Batman book with a new villain without some insane interior artwork. the environments, the character design, just the evilness, the monstrous element of Poison Ivy in this, completely nailed by Canetti and his art style. Amazing coloring inside the book as well. It gets you excited. It gets you hyped up. Man, they're just killing it on all fronts right now. So let me know if you read this one. What were your thoughts? What kind of covers did you grab? I personally grabbed an A cover. I got the Canetti cover as well, and the Ben Oliver, which will come later in March. Really excited to add those to the PC. Next up from DC is Catwoman issue number 84. We have Groenbeck doing the writing on this one. So I wanted to jump back into Catwoman. Now, I will say, if you are in a similar situation, you can do it on this issue right here, issue number 84. You have to realize some of Selina's past villains, especially in the mobster scene over in Gotham. I'm not going to ruin like exactly who she's dealing with right now. If you just understand her complex relationship and how the mob side of things has shaped her as a person and has affected her personally, if you have that base understanding, even if you don't, jump into 84. It's a great place to start right now. It's also a good place to start because they are touching back on some storylines and some events inside of Batman Year One. There are some people that she was hanging out with, some people that looked up to her as a role model. She was trying to bring all these strays in, you know what I mean? And take them on missions, trying to get them out of Gotham. Like, what is your goal in life? How do we get you there? How do we rob from the rich and give to the poor to make our dreams come true? How do we get out of here? We touched base back on that kind of stuff, and it was really cool to go back and flip through Year One and say, yeah, this does make sense. It does align. That was pretty cool, I thought. So Groenbeck's doing some pretty cool stuff in here. She's got Selina in a very interesting position right now. She's touching base with her character, Selina's character, inside of Year One. She's building on that mythology, and I thought it all worked perfectly. So again, if you're interested in reading Catwoman, pick up on issue number 84. There's a lot of cool stuff that you're going to be experiencing there, and especially if you have an understanding of what happened in Batman Year One, it's a great place to jump in right now. All right, next up is our Soot-Stained Heart over in Mad Cave. We have issue number 3. So what's interesting about this book is it's probably the most enjoyable book I'm reading that I don't understand, if that makes sense. I want to know if you guys have ever read a story before. You're like, I don't know what's going on in this book, but I like what I'm seeing so far. That's what this series has been up until now. At a very, very high level, we do have a Santa Claus character. We have like a Jack Frost character. We get an origin story to understand what their relationship was when they were younger, before they were like these avatars of sorts. They were best friends. They had their own personalities. And they were getting together. They were doing missions. They were going to try to find these like mystical things and these like sources of energy or these new lands to, you know, do whatever they wanted to do with them. Now, along the way, they did find artifacts that manipulated them over time. They grew more cold. There were some promises that were made that they would take care of each other, things like that. And that relationship essentially got tainted over time, ended up pulling them apart, and like the myths of themselves became too big. And I guess like the whole entire culture got wrapped into all this too. So these dependencies on the coal and the politics around all of that get wrapped into it as well. So it's a very interesting book, basically about two characters that ended up getting corrupted. They split apart, and they're basically tainting the world in the process. And the visuals are great too. They are ever evolving. They match the tone of what's happening on the page. And it's just a really great book to look at. I think this will make a great collected read because then you can kind of apply all those lessons learned from the previous issue, pulling those forward. So keep that in mind. The single issue read would be great, but I think that collected edition will be the best way to consume this. All right, next up is the incredibly named Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre issue number 1. So here's the bit behind this one. Every single month we do a Best of the Month show over on Pop Culture Philosophers. Our great friend, bearded comic bro Greg, typically will bring a very oddball book to the table and talk about it. And historically, not all of us have read those. So now my goal is to find the most ridiculous named comic coming out each month and try to get that book and read it. And in anticipation that Greg will inevitably bring it up. He certainly will bring it up this week or this month coming up, and some other folks have read it as well, so joke's on him. Now, with that said, it is a hilarious book. It's basically an alt-world kind of a thing. We're set in Florida. Of course, they take the whole Disneyland or Disney World theme and they crank it up to 11. They Americanize it to the extreme inside the book. Basically, the Walt Disney avatar character is fat. He's grotesque. He's completely dependent on those around him. He's narcissistic to the nth degree. He's also running this underground drug cartel kind of a thing, and it's really funny. It's completely over the top. Just, you know, soaked in satire and everything. So it's basically about the drug busts of this guy and like the personal relationships of the people trying to expose him to the world. So if you're looking for the big dumb fun and something you'll laugh at, something you'll sit back and just really enjoy in ways that, you know, some comics don't offer you, this is the book for you. Make sure to check it out. Let me know if you did. All right, I actually missed one of the DC books. We have a DC Vertigo book called End of Life issue number 1. I think this is probably the 3rd Vertigo book to be released. We have Kyle Starks on this one, and we have Stephen Pugh doing the art. And now at a high level, this book is basically if John Wick was a complete screw up, right? Like he's this world-renowned assassin. Nobody wants to mess with him. He's part of this larger organization that he ends up betraying or inadvertently betrays. And so he's on the run right now, needing to seek asylum from people who he's abandoned in his life or have abandoned him. And he's kind of done the same thing. So there is a opening element of like heists and assassins, things like that. But it eventually evolves into a, you know, family dynamics kind of a issue. Also touching base with some like former past loves that never really went anywhere. So a lot of like character moments inside the story as well. It does feel like a Kyle Starks book. It has a lot of great humor inside of it. It rolls really easily. A lot of action in the story as well. So if you're into that kind of stuff, recommend checking this one out. And it's a DC Vertigo book. I recommend just supporting that line in general. Try all the new number 1s and kind of hone in over time on your favorites. All right, let's go over to Dynamite now. We have Muppets Noir issue number 1. I never thought I'd be reading this book, but I wanted to check it out because it had an interesting cover and I'm like, where could this possibly go? So I went ahead and grabbed it. Now, obviously, if you're a Muppets fan, you're going to like this one. All the characters you can hear in their own voice as you're reading this. It does turn into a noir type story. We basically have Kermit running the show. Think of like a Saturday Night Live or a Muppet Show kind of a thing where he's trying to coordinate all the bits and get everybody in place to go live. And so he needs to take a break. He sits over to the side and he actually gets knocked unconscious inadvertently through one of the acts, right? And he goes into this noir type setting. He's reading a book. He gets transported into that kind of a world and he's trying to solve this weird mystery of a missing person in this weird noir dream state. Now, this book really succeeds in bringing in the different Muppet characters whenever they need to fulfill the roles that all those different characters have in this noir setting. And we have a lot of mystery to unsolve. It's fun. It's not really for me. I grew up with the Muppets, but it's not something I'm dying to read in a comic form. But if you're a big fan, I recommend at least checking it out. All right, let's go over to Ignition Press. We have Arcadia issue number 3. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love the design of this book, the art, the colors, the pacing of it is really cool. So from a display point of view, great quality. Highly recommend just checking it out and flipping through it to see if you might want to read it. Story-wise, it is a mix of a lot of familiar things. It has some Tron elements. It has some Akira stuff in there. It has some Matrix elements in there. So a lot of cool things blended together inside here. It does have its own unique story thrown on top of that, so there is that too. This one is really action-packed though. We're basically trying to find these energy cells in this forbidden area. Think of like a zombie apocalypse. Think of like don't go into the city because it's overrun with all these feral things. And so of course our protagonist needs to go into the city to get that gold, right, from the dragon. And that's essentially what we do inside the book. There is a lot of emotion in here though. There's this one specific relationship that we're trying to preserve and we're trying to gather these resources to help this person out. And it doesn't quite go according to plan. And so there is a cool emotional element to the whole thing as well. So it's got a lot of interesting things going for it. It's got a great design. It's got emotion. It's got some great character development in here. It's got a cool, unique story, but a lot of familiar tones, like I said. It's worth checking out if you haven't yet. All right, let's close it out in Image. We have Death Fight Forever issue number 1. When I saw this was an homage cover to Double Dragon 2, The Revenge, the NES cartridge, I was like, yep, I don't care what it is. I don't need to see anything else. I'm buying this one for a cover grab alone, and I'm glad I did. Now, the art inside, man, it makes you feel like you're watching opening scenes on an NES game. You can hear the music. You can hear like that specific crackly sound effect that they use for helicopters. You can hear that just like crappy yet majestic music style that they used to use back then when you're reading the entire thing. I was hearing sound effects the entire time, and that blew me away. The story is very straightforward as well. Again, it's like you're playing a Nintendo game, and that was really fun. Like this and Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre, they were such welcome additions to this week's books because there's some heavy elements in here, but I had a great time with this issue. It's simplistic, it's easy, it's over the top, it's colored in a weird weird way. But the art is sketchy, it's gritty, it's like not supposed to be perfect, and I just loved every second of it. All right, next up is G.I. Joe. We have issue number 19 coming out this week, and this is the cool issue because this is something I was looking forward to for a long time. What happens when Duke finally realizes that Transformers are like in his midst, right? Like people are aligning themselves with him inside of Duke's own little team here. And so like what happens when he finally learns this, and what is his reaction to this? Because up until now, he's been fighting these things and not aligning himself with them. So we do get a lot of that in here, right? So we do get some of those confrontations. What do they feel like? What do they sound like? But we also get some touch bases on what our villains are doing. Some of our villains are infiltrating their way into G.I. Joe right now. And so we know what their missions are. They're still pulling the strings. There's a lot of mystery around that though. So eventually that's going to come to a head, and that's going to be pretty fun to see too. The vibe of this issue is more of a realization. It's more of a step back. We've been building for so long. We have our initial reaction to the situation going on from Duke. So there's not a whole lot of like super excitement that we've seen in previous issues, but it still had some pretty cool moments though. All right, then lastly, we have White Sky issue number 1. This book took off for some reason. I think it was because of a low print count. I think it was because of some online sales that were a little higher than the average sale, and that kind of snowballed up into something where people just ran to their shop that morning when they got that notification. They grabbed it, they took pictures of it in their front seat, they posted it on eBay, and were selling for $50 a piece or more with shipping. Really bizarre, but it was an interesting story. I think we need to learn more about this universe to get really excited about it, but the foundation is there to be something really cool. So at its heart, it's really a, Terminator, end of Judgment Day type of a situation. There's bodies everywhere, there's skulls everywhere. It's a little bit in the future right now. Humanity is essentially wiped out. Now, like, what did it? We explore that, assumingly, as we go on from the story, but think of like that post-Judgment Day Terminator landscape or like a Walking Dead landscape. We have a father, we have a daughter, great relationship between them, a lot of cool moments, a lot of quiet moments too, but when they start talking, when they get to take a minute and rest and kind of wind down a little bit, you explore their past a little bit. You start caring about the characters, so good on them for that. Now, aside from that, where it gets a little complex and a little bit different than what you thought was going to happen is towards the very end. We get to see this destructive force come for our heroes. Now, what it is, I did not expect at all. And is that the actual thing? Like, where do they come from? Of course, this is issue number 1. So we need that teaser. We need that little hook to get issue number 2. Inevitably, they're going to flush all this out and really tell us what happened in here. But as of right now, I got a lot of questions about like, what are these things that we're dealing with right now? They're not zombies. It's not a kaiju. It's not anything like that. They're not Terminators. It's something else. I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to figure it out, but did not see that coming towards the end. It had a little bit of a trade kind of a vibe to it, like a pacing element to it. There is an end to this first issue, but it feels like something that was written for a trade. From an art point of view, it was very focused on either the environment that they're trying to portray or the single characters themselves, and really nothing else. The term White Sky is probably appropriate. There's a lot of whited out inside of this story. So like, I think the art was playing into that theme of the story at least, but like the lines and the colors themselves, I really dug. I like that a lot. So if you're able to get it and flip it for a quick 45, man, I'm happy for you. That's great. It might be a great trade read. You can get the second print that's going to be coming out very soon, or check out the subsequent issues as well. I'm going to be sticking around for a while to get like the idea of what's going on with the story, the origin of how the world got to the way it was, and like I'm interested in seeing where the characters go. All right, guys, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below what you grabbed and what your favorite books of the week were. Also, check out the description. I'll have links to some of these books. You can get caught up and join the conversations every week. But as always, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the comments.